Crikey, mates! Throw another shrimp on the barbie, because we have a new episode of Call It in the Ring, a wrestling recap and discussion show with Marcus Stewart. Stone the Flaming Crows, the dingo ate my baby.
Pardon the accent, but we are down under in Australia. Melbourne, Australia, to be exact. Welcome, everybody. We've finally arrived. One of the 3 shows that WWE has been building towards, probably specifically Monday Night Raw. We have the WWE Super Showdown live, like I said, in Melbourne, in the giant, very large, I think it's the Melbourne Cricket Arena, I think is what it's called. And I believe, Cricket, the sport, not Cricket, the wireless phone company. It's been a long, somewhat confusing and branching road to get to this point, but we are finally here for what is the second international network special of the year. And this show is more or less kind of a glorified house show. It's like if you gave a house show a WrestleMania budget. It's pretty much what this is, but that doesn't mean there can't be any good to be had from this. So without further ado, let's get to it. And don't worry, I'm not going to do the entire video with that accent, mainly because it's not great, and also I could not maintain it even in its not great original form. So I have to assuage your fears. So the first match of the card, we had The Bar challenging The New Day for the SmackDown Tag Team Championships. And this was a solid opener. This was the Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston pairing as the Speed Force configuration, as the commentators let us know the name of this duo, which, you know, as it sounds, is the 2 speediest members of the team. So they and I never really thought about it, but I like that the New Day being a threesome and with 3 different types of competitors in the group, that they can change up these combinations, and it really is much like a video game of like changing your loadout, which fits hand in hand with the New Day's love of video games, especially Xavier Woods. If you're into his YouTube channel, Up Down Down, which is a very fun channel if you've never seen it, free advertising. Anyways, this was a fun back and forth match, as you would expect from 2 of the best teams of the recent generation. The New Day pick up the win, which wasn't a surprise, with a cool kind of like backstabber, kind of top rope stomp, coup de grace, if you will, combo, which I guess it's okay because Finn Balor was not on the show. And yeah, I predicted this because I figure that the Bludgeon Brothers will be getting a rematch against the New Day. Good for them. The Bar, man, they've really, like I said before, they've fallen through the roof since coming to SmackDown. They should probably split up just to give the mid-card and upper mid-card a little bit of oomph, which it kind of needs. At the same time, I'm always sad to see a team split up. And I'm sad to, I'm actually surprised that I'm sad about the possibility that The Bar could be done, given that I was not super huge in them getting together initially. So we'll see where they go from here. But we do know where we go from here, as in the show. We go straight to our SmackDown Women's Championship match. Charlotte Flair challenging champion Becky Lynch. And this got the big recap treatment, as it should be, because it's one of the most well-built feuds in the entire company. In the beginning, Michael Cole's audio got kind of weird. It sounded like he wasn't actually there. It kind of sounded like he was calling from Skype and they just put a microphone in front of his laptop, but it only lasted for a few seconds, but I thought it was funny. This is another great back and forth bout between these two ladies. At one point, Becky turned up her heelishness in this match, whereas before she was wrestling a more aggressive but still straightforward and clean match. This time she was trying heel tactics, where at one point she tried to take a walk, grab her belt, and go home, but it did not last long because Charlotte Flair went after her. And then at the end of the match, Becky gets caught in the figure 4, and Charlotte is trying to bridge into the figure 8, but she's struggling because she is injured from just worn out from the match. And then Becky, who managed to get the belt into the ring earlier, manages to grab it as she's locked in the figure 4, and then just starts hitting her with the belt, just starts swinging it at Charlotte, which drawing the very blatant DQ, saving her championship and giving Flair the DQ victory. Once again, Becky tries to take a walk after this, but Charlotte's like, and goes after her. But that winds up being a mistake because Becky soon gets the upper hand on Charlotte and then beats her down, including hitting a Bexploder on the floor, because Becky's exploder suplex, and then giving her a running knee to her head against the barricade. So Becky got the last laugh times 2 on this occasion. But with that victory, of course, this match, or this story, is not over. So I would imagine Charlotte will get another shot at Evolution. I can't remember if they announced that or not officially, but if they haven't, there's no way that's not going to happen. So, but yeah, this was another fine match with a totally acceptable ending, which honestly you would expect for kind of a house showy match for this. Our next match, and yeah, it is just match to match to match, just because that's just the nature of this show. There's virtually no fluff like interviews or anything like that in between, so we're going straight down the card. We've got Elias teaming up with Kevin Owens. They're a couple of great guys, teaming to take on Bobby Lashley and the returning John Cena. Before the match, Elias does his little concert, and he plays a little bit of a Thunderstruck by AC/DC. He does the opening chords, and does a decent job of it. That's not an easy song to play. And like I've said before, the beautiful thing about Elias is that if he plays it good, people love him. If he sucks at it, it's okay because he's a villain, and that plays into his character of thinking that he's better than he actually is. So he's kind of got his bases covered with his gimmick. Of course, him and Elias make fun of Melbourne. Kevin says Melbourne's a cesspool and that it should have been in Canada. And then Elias makes fun of some Australian celebrity or athlete, I don't know. He made some remark about a guy who I didn't catch the name, but it drew a big response and people were booing. Not quite to the level of Seattle on Monday when he made fun of their basketball team, but they were upset. But the reference was lost on me. No Leo Rush today. He could not make the flight. I'm guessing Bobby Lashley could not fit him in his overhead compartment, which is surprising because Leo's a pretty small guy, but he had to leave something behind. John Cena comes to the ring. Big return. It's always great to see John, especially nowadays. I still can't remember if this is his first match since the destruction at WrestleMania at the hands of The Undertaker. But Cena comes out, and he's got a full head of hair, which I knew of going in because I've seen videos of him on WWE's YouTube channel. He's currently working in China and living in China, if you're not aware, and has been for the last few months living full-time in China because he's working on some film stuff. He, of course, has learned fluent Mandarin years ago when WWE first were breaking into the Chinese market, which is extremely impressive, and much respect to him for doing that, especially with the insane schedule that he has to fit that in. But he's got a full head of hair. It looks weird. It actually reminds me of, for you Dragon Ball Z fans, seeing Krillin grow his hair out. It's kind of the feeling I had here. Like, oh wow, that's right. He's got hair. Like he's capable of having a full head of hair if he wants it. And we also hear that Cena's been training in stunt work with Jackie Chan, which is pretty cool. I would like to see footage of that. Elias and Lashley start off. They botch a leapfrog spot going in a little bit, but it's nothing bad. They pretty much did the whole story of this match where the bad guys trying to keep Cena out of the match as much as possible. So it's just Bobby just playing Ricky Morton and just getting double teamed and trying to fight back, but then keep getting cut off at the legs, and Cena just chomping at the bit to get into the match. But the villains they're not letting it happen until they did. And they were sorry immediately for it, because Cena comes in like a house of fire, immediately hits Elias with the 5 moves of doom. And then, after he hits the AA, he sets up, he does a pose. He puts his arms crossed against his chest, so he kind of looks like Wonder Woman, blocking stuff with her bracelets, and then charges up. And then Cole talks about how, are we going to see it? It can't be. Are we going to see it? And we're like, what are we going to see? And then he does this kind of straight punch, like a martial arts punch. And Cole pronounced it was, or Michael Cole, it was either Cole or Corey, I can't remember, but one of them said the name of it. It was a Chinese, I'm assuming a Mandarin name. And, but Cole declares it the mythical 6 move of doom. And it's enough to get the win. So, and this is literally after Cena literally came in, hit the 5 moves plus the new 6 move of doom, and won the match. So he came in, and I guess after getting squashed by Undertaker at WrestleMania, he had to return the favor to somebody. So, yeah, that was the match. I don't even know if I'm disappointed to not see much more of Cena, like a little bit more of a showcase for him. He probably got a bit of ring rust, I would imagine. Like, even no matter how much you've been wrestling, you know, going away for 3 months, you're not going to come back incredibly the same. But, I mean, he was fine in the short burst that we saw him in. Post-match, Cena grabs the mic and cuts a promo, kind of emotional, saying he doesn't really know what the future holds for him, but he's not forgetting where he comes from and that he's going to focus on the now. And then he thanks all of the Aussies in attendance for hosting the WWE. So, just a nice promo. Next up, we have the Iconics, the hometown girls of Peyton Royce and Billie Kay taking on Asuka and Naomi. The Iconics come out first, of course, and get a nice reception, as you would expect from their hometown crowd. And they cut a relatively face promo talking about how excited they are to be back and to beat their opponents. It's still got a bit of the Iconics ditzy assholeness, but it's a lot friendlier this time. Asuka has glowing hair during Naomi's entrance, which is pretty cool. And when the match starts, the crowd is surprisingly tame, given that this is their first hometown. Their first hometown superstars of the night. I was expecting it to be a bit more rabid for them, but they seemed relatively tepid. I don't know if it's because the Iconics are heels, even though, you know, maybe they're like, oh, you're from here, but you're also jerks, even though they weren't outwardly jerky to the crowd for once, because they tend to rip on every town that they're in. But the Iconics pick up the win, as you would I guess I can't even say as you would expect, because WWE has a terrible track record of having people win in their hometowns. So maybe the trick is to be a villain, because then you're not screwing, you know, you're not getting the feel good moment because they're bad guys. But they win by doing this kind of running knee, like a lifting knee lift thing to Naomi after taking out Asuka outside. And yeah, I mean, Asuka was in another losing match, but also this match doesn't really mean anything, like a lot of stuff on the show for the most part. So, no big deal. Just give the hometown girls a win to give the crowd something to pop for. A match that does mean something is the WWE Championship match. Samoa Joe taking on AJ Styles. This is the latest chapter in their very personal feud, where at this particular junction, Joe has actually visited AJ Styles' house. He teased going into it, but did not after the authorities were called. He was going to be fired by management until Styles begged them to keep him on the payroll, because he, in Vince McMahon's words, firing you would be too easy. and he just wants to kill Joe with his own bare hands, basically. So that's the story, and that story paid off immediately because Joe comes out first, and instead of getting to the ring, he decides to just wait for AJ at the end of the ramp, and AJ has no problem sprinting straight for Joe, and they immediately get it on before the bell even starts, and they just start tearing each other up. This was more of a fight than the other two. They got back in the ring and eventually kind of did some of their general wrestling stuff. At one point, AJ did his backflip out of the corner, like into an inverted DDT, but Joe catches him into an Emerald Fusion or Emerald Fusion, whatever you want to call it, but it's a really devastating looking Japanese move that Joe has not used in a long time, and you really don't even see performed in WWE like ever, but he hit it here and it shocked Corey Graves in particular. So that was pretty cool. At one point, Samoa Joe brings a chair into the equation, and of course, because it's wrestling, the wrestling law dictates that if you introduce a weapon, odds are you will be on the receiving end of it first, and he gets a drop kicked into his face. AJ got bloody at his mouth at some point during this, but yeah, they're tearing each other up. At one point, Joe hit that Uranagi out of the corner on AJ onto the open chair. And then a big turning point in the match was when AJ hit he got Joe up because Joe was he was trying to do the muscle buster, or no, I think that was later. But at one point, AJ managed to get Joe on top of his shoulders for an electric chair. And then there's a table that they set up earlier in the match, and AJ drops Joe through the table, which also sends AJ himself through the table. And Joe primarily landed on his left knee, and then Joe's just grabbing at his leg, screaming, and he's telling the ref that he heard his knee pop, which at first I was worried of like, oh God, please tell me he's just selling and this isn't true. Thankfully he was just selling, because that AJ immediately notices this and starts in a really cool move. He kind of goes into serial killer mode here, where he kind of like sees Joe writhing in pain, telling the ref that his knee is just shot. And AJ very calmly goes to the ref, doesn't really say much, he just kind of calmly moves him out of the way and just has this kind of like 1,000-yard stare. And then he just looks at Joe, and Joe is crawling, and he kind of realizes what's happening here. And Joe is just AJ stalking Joe like a serial killer, and just starts stomping at his knee and just beating on the knee and doing all these things. And then he's yelling at Joe about there being consequences to what he did. And right now, AJ's got him where he wants him. Like, Joe tries to fight back. At one point, he countered the calf crusher into the clutch, but AJ escaped. AJ hit a 450 splash on his bad knee. He was just vicious at this point, AJ, which understandably, he is getting his revenge on the guy that has consistently and relentlessly been terrorizing his family. So can you really blame the guy? And a really cool ending. Or actually, there was another cool point right before the ending where AJ hit the phenomenal forearm, or tried to, but Joe countered it into the clutch. But instead of holding on to it, he does like an inverted belly to belly and just throws AJ over his body by his like neck, and it looked really wicked. Like, especially the way AJ landed, like that looked painful. And then when we get to the real ending, Joe goes for the muscle buster, but his knee that AJ's been beating the crap out of, it gives out as he's trying to carrying AJ on his shoulders. AJ uses that to roll over into a roll up, but then Joe counters that into the coquina clutch, which then AJ counters by rolling through in the same way he did at Hell in a Cell, but this time, instead of holding on to it, he reverses out of the pin and the clutch, which Joe still had the clutch on, into the calf crusher, and then this time Joe taps out. So because Joe could not hold on anymore, he got the calf crusher on the bad knee, and Joe had no choice but to just tap out, and AJ has finally definitively defeated Joe. So now that this feud is done, because we already have a number one contenders match later in the night, this decide AJ's new challenger. So this is a nice clean way, or this show in general is a nice clean way to end one WWE title program and move on to the next one. This was another really good match between these two, and a nice brutal match, and I think a satisfying ending. Like, we finally got an ending that made sense, and I like just the psychology of like Joe, getting his knee hurt, AJ going after the knee like a shark, like literally just vicious. Joe trying to counter up, but this was kind of karma coming back to haunt Joe, and then eventually Joe, the submission machine, being forced to tap out at the hands of AJ Styles. So all around, some really good stuff here. We got the Riot Squad taking on the Bella Twins and Ronda Rousey. And I just thought of this randomly when I was watching the Riot Squad get the entrance, but it must be really nice to be Liv Morgan, because she gets to get a piggyback ride to the ring by thanks to Sarah Logan every time they go out. That's got to be pretty fun. Get piggyback rides on live TV and get paid for it. The Bellas have some very light issues with Ronda at the beginning, where they're trying to decide who wants to start the match and Nikki's insisting. And then the Bellas kind of keep tagging themselves in and out and kind of ignoring Ronda, which the commentators explain as well. They're just used to each other. But it seems like there was some very, very light seed planting for the rumored Nikki Bella versus Ronda Rousey match at Evolution. But nothing super major. Like, nothing came out of this. And an interesting thing that did happen was Liv Morgan, when Brie Bella's in the ring, Liv gets tagged and then immediately does like a running drop kick to Brie's face, just knocks her the hell out. And then the commentators kind of acknowledged that, hey, Brie was the one that took Liv out a few weeks ago. Legit, if you remember that Brie legitimately knocked Liv out during a tag match on Raw with the yes kicks. But then Brie grabs Liv's tongue. Like, Liv is taunting her and sticking her tongue out, which is always different colors because, I don't know, she's George the Animal Steel, maybe a big fan. But then Brie grabs her tongue and pulls on it to kind of, to quote Michael Cole, to make her pay for sticking her tongue out, which I thought was pretty cool. Ronda finally gets in and does kind of her usual like arm snaps, but she also hits a nice regal roll, which you don't never seen her do. The match ends when she does she gets Morgan and Logan, their names rhyme, I just realized that. She gets the two women that are not Ruby Riott in the ring, and she does a double arm snap to both of them, and then in a really creative finish, crosses their arms, like she has their arms she's ragdolling them, and then crosses them together and locks in a double arm bar and forces them both to tap out at the same time. And I was like, well, that's creative. And yeah, Ronda and the Bellas win, which I'm not surprised. A totally fine match with a fun ending, and I'm still curious to see if that Bella versus Nikki match, or Bella versus Ronda match, really actually happens. So if it is, they've been teasing it very, very lightly, but now that this show is done, we should be seeing very soon if it's going to happen or not. So our next match is the Cruiserweight Championship match. Cedric Alexander, who has held that championship since he won it at WrestleMania 34 this year, against Buddy Murphy, formerly of Blake and Murphy and NXT, and another Australian superstar. I don't watch 205 Live. I've established this before, purely because I just don't have the time to squeeze in another hour of wrestling during my busy week, but I have heard some very good things about Buddy Murphy. The last time I really watched Murphy was in his NXT days, back when he was a team and then he split up. I've seen very, very limited amount of his work since coming to 205, but I've heard some glowing things. But I was very impressed with him here, because in NXT, around the end of his time there when he was a singles guy, he definitely showed flashes of brilliance. But this was the culmination of that. Like, first of all, body-wise, he looks great. Like, I mean, this is old news for 205 Live fans, but man, he looks great. Like, he's cut. He looks leaner. He's been working. He got a haircut. Looks better on him. And this was a fun match. And the crowd gave Buddy a much bigger reaction than they did the Iconics, which is interesting because Buddy is also a villain, so I don't know why he got a bigger pop than the Iconics, but he did. And he kind of got the biggest pop of the night, maybe in general for the most part. But this was a great athletic, just high-flying, back and forth match. Cedric was basically the heel in this match by default, though he did not wrestle a heel style. He was heel by virtue of not being Buddy Murphy. There was a great moment where like Cedric hit a Michinoku driver from the top turnbuckle after Buddy just ran at him to get him on the top rope, and he just kind of seamlessly reversed it into the Michinoku, which was great. Murphy kicked out of the lumbar check. Cedric Alexander's finisher to a huge pop. Oh man, these guys, they hit a running Spanish fly like Cedric, which is kind of one of his things. And then in the finish of the match, Murphy finally hits his his finisher, this pump handle driver, and gets the win, which ended Cedric's very long reign, it was a nice reign he got there. And yeah, the roof, I would say the roof came off the place, but the stadium did not have a roof, but whatever was over it came off of the building. People are really happy. Maybe the biggest pop a cruiserweight title change has ever had. So, but that's cool. Congrats to Murphy. I'm still not going to watch 205 Live, but I hope he has a nice reign. Our next match is it is the second biggest match on this show. Braun Strowman, Dolph Ziggler, Drew McIntyre taking on The Shield. Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns. This match has dominated Raw's storylines for the last several weeks to the point where every title on the show that is for the men is on these 6 men. The tag titles, the Intercontinental title, and the Universal title. All of those champions are of this group. So it has monopolized everything on Raw. And yeah. The Shield come out with some new gear and they bring back masks. They have these new masks, which I was happy to see because I was a big fan of those half masks that they had at WrestleMania 30 that didn't last very long. But they had the fangs. These are different masks. These are all black, and they honestly look like Mortal Kombat ninja mask. And Dean Ambrose, especially because he wore a hood, he basically looked like Noob Saibot as he was coming to the ring. But the Shield come to the ring in their cool new gear, and then as you would expect, it's a giant brawl to start. The bell didn't even ring for the first portion of it. They're just tearing each other up. And then eventually the Shield gets rid of the other two, the tag champions, and then they just start swarming on Braun, which is a smart strategy. But then Braun kind of powers his way out of it, and they're just going at it. For some reason, the Shield was in the corner of the ring that the heels usually stand on, and vice versa. I thought that was weird. But this match was basically Seth Rollins in the beginning. He gets picked apart for a good while, where they have isolated him and he's just getting beat up on. He can't tag his partners until Braun stupidly tries to go for a top rope splash, and then Seth it manages to get Dean in there. It just becomes like the trademark chaotic Shield 6-man formula of like just everyone is everywhere, and it's a lot of fun to watch. But this also had a story of they incorporated the Dean Ambrose where does he stand storyline. Is he with the Shield? Is he thinking about splitting? Has he over the Shield? Is he gonna join the villains? Because at one point Reigns accidentally Superman punches Dean to the floor. He was going for McIntyre, and McIntyre ducked, and he just decked Dean. He knocked him so hard his hair grew back. That takes Dean out for a good while. But then Reigns manages to make up for it, where he at one point later on, Braun is gonna run Dean through the barricade, and then Roman came out of nowhere and intercepted Braun, like right before he runs into Ambrose. Reigns comes he basically like T-bones Braun and spears him through the barricade, and that was a nice spot, because I didn't realize Roman was where he was, so I was surprised to see him just appear out of the screen and take Braun out. And then at one point we get the Roman and Seth are in the ring by themselves. They're surrounded by the villains, and then Dean climbs the apron with the other ones as they surround the ring. So they're surrounded on all four sides, and everyone's wondering if Dean has finally turned on his brothers. But then Dean gets back into the ring and rejoins the Shield, and then we get our big ending with Reigns taking out Strowman, of course, at that point with the spear, and then Seth and Drew neutralizing each other, which allowed Dean to hit Dirty Deeds on Dolph, the weak link of the team, according to Braun Strowman, for the 1-2-3. Shield wins, as I expected, and this was a really fun 6-man tag, which is the Shield's calling card. So nice to see them deliver here. I mean, this would have to be the end of this faction storyline now that we have the triple threat to build towards now. And I'm curious to see where Ziggler and McIntyre go as a team. They got to be dropping those tag titles pretty soon, and hopefully this furthers the split of McIntyre, letting him be on his own. So, fun match. Our next match, which I'd actually forgotten about because this was later in the show than I thought it would be, it's The Miz taking on Daniel Bryan. And, this is the third match in their recent feud, but this has an added caveat where the winner will become the #1 contender for the WWE Championship. Miz tries to cut a promo on the way to the ring, but he gets cut off by Daniel Bryan's entrance. We see AJ Styles watching in the back, but Miz smartly immediately goes for his bad ribs, which were injured by Shelton Benjamin on SmackDown earlier in the week. And then in a shock, this match was maybe 3 minutes long because Miz hits the running knee. He steals Daniel Bryan's running knee and hits it on Bryan, but it doesn't work. And then he tries to go for the skull-crushing finale, but Bryan rolls through and counters it into a roll-up and gets the win. And there was some confusion at first, one, because the crowd was not expecting that, so they didn't even pop for the pin until after the bell rang, and they realized, like, oh no, that's it, that's the end. But also, just the reaction from the commentators, there was a little bit of hesitation of, like, it seemed like they were suggesting that maybe Miz's shoulders weren't down all the way, but on the replay, they clearly were down for the 1-2-3, and no one debated it. So I don't know, maybe it was just the just selling the shock of, oh, it's over already. And I was wondering if they were running low for time, but when I checked on the network, like on the timestamp, this match ended at almost exactly the 3-hour mark. And the show on the timestamp was 4 hours long. And there was no other announced match other than the main event. So I was like, they can't be running low on time. I mean, I know they've got 2 of the longest entrances in the world next between Triple H and The Undertaker, and the ramp's really long, but still, like, they got a full hour left to play with. So I like the idea that Bryan beat him with a wrestling move, because that's kind of been Bryan's thing for a while, is that Miz isn't a good wrestler and Bryan is. So for him to beat him with an old school wrestling move that quickly kind of plays into that. I'm just like, oh wow, that was fast. So Daniel Bryan will be facing AJ Styles, and they set the title date for the match. It's going to happen at Crown Jewel, which is November 2nd. So we'll find out who will be the Crown Jewel on that night. It won't be The Miz. So, but yeah, not much to say about this match just because it was shorter, much shorter than I expected it to be, and not enough. They weren't able to get enough going in that time. So, and now that brings us to the main event, the match we've been building towards and taking up spots on Raw, and just it is the nostalgia fest between Triple H and The Undertaker for the last time ever. And also for a little bit of added spice, some side dishes. Accompanying the wrestlers, we've got Shawn Michaels in Triple H's corner, and Kane The Undertaker's brother, his half-brother, and his. The entrances alone take up like 20 minutes between the four guys, so maybe they did need that extra hour. And then this match, as much as I really wasn't interested in seeing it, and it ultimately served no purpose and doesn't really help anyone because neither guy needs it, it wound up being pretty alright. Better, I think it was better than I expected it to be. Triple H and Shawn Michaels were pretty much, not even pretty much, they were the heels in this match. Like, Shawn kept trying to interfere. Triple H was being super cocky, especially in the beginning, just kind of mocking Undertaker. He tried to go and use old school, but that failed miserably because Taker's like, bitch, please, what are you doing? Michael Cole dropped an interesting stat that I've never heard before as long as Undertaker's been around, but apparently The Undertaker has won more pay-per-view matches than anyone ever, like anyone in WWE history. He has 101 pay-per-view wins, which I did not know of, but I like hearing that. I love learning nerdy new facts, especially about wrestlers that have been around forever. It's nice to still learn something you didn't know about. But this match pretty much is an Attitude Era style match, with it being no disqualification. The seconds for each guy, by that I mean Kane and Shawn Michaels, kept interfering at all types of points, making me wonder why they wouldn't just interfere constantly since there's no DQ. It may as well make it kind of like a tornado tag match. Chairs were brought in. They're beating each other with chairs. They fight in the crowd. Taker's choking Triple H with rope because why not? Maybe he wants to hang him like he did Big Boss Man. He's gonna bring that back. Tables get introduced. Kane gets put through a table by Triple H, who jumped off the apron with an elbow, which that's a new one for him. And then at one point, Undertaker hits the tombstone on Triple H, which would normally get the 3, but because this is Undertaker in 2018, it's good for 2. And then Undertaker punches out the ref, because I guess he's mad that he didn't count the 3, but I was like, oh, what? You can't fine what you can't kill, I guess. I mean, how can you slap a dead guy with a fine for attacking the referee? Maybe that's his reasoning. But that was kind of heelish and something I would expect more from Triple H, because one, he's a dick, and also he's the COO. So like kayfabe storyline, he could just say like, well, you're going to fine me? I'm the guy that writes the fines or something. So, and then at one point, Triple H Undertaker beats on Triple H for a good while with a chair, and then tries to Pillmanize his neck. And if you're not familiar, Pillmanizing is when you take a chair and you put like a limb, like a leg or an ankle, or the head in this case, and you stick it in between the seat and the back part, so like you're trapped in the chair, and then you stomp on it so it would break the bone or whatever's in between the chair. So in this case, he put his head in, so he's going to try to snap his neck. Triple H escapes, but he manages to Pillmanize Undertaker's neck. He puts Undertaker's head in the chair and then stomps on it from the top rope, and that messes Taker up pretty good. Shawn Michaels gets punched down a few times by the Undertaker for trying to interfere, giving us some more shots of Shawn's horrifically bald head. And then weapons are introduced, with Shawn Michaels bringing in the sledgehammer and Kane giving Taker a chair. Yeah, this match is just, it's got some shades of Sting versus Triple H versus WrestleMania 31. And they even reenact the ending of WrestleMania 27, where Undertaker has Triple H in the Hell's Gate while Triple H is holding the sledgehammer and trying to use it, but he can't. But this time he does manage to escape, where he uses the hammer to choke Undertaker, like the handle of the hammer, while he's on the ground, which I liked, because that kind of shows that Triple H learned his lesson from WrestleMania 27 in terms of how to escape that situation. Another ref comes out and gets taken down. Like I said, this is straight up Attitude Era style of just chaos and refs getting knocked down and weapons and constant interference from Kane and Shawn Michaels, and it's a mess, but it's an admittedly fun kind of mess. At the end, Taker loses after Shawn Michaels super kicks Taker. It takes a hammer to the face. He gets super kicked again, and then he gets pedigreed, and then trips celebrates like he just won the match completely on his own, like he's crying because he's so happy, even though it was like the most tainted win ever. And yes, I know it's no disqualification, so technically it's all clean, but that finish of like literally Shawn hitting 2 super kicks and then using a weapon, and that's how he finally beats the Undertaker, like But Undertaker doesn't seem to mind, because after the match, the 4 men have this kind of end of an era-esque moment of respect where Undertaker hands the sledgehammer back to Triple H. Triple H helps him off the ground. They seem to have buried the hatchet. The 4 men, the 2 monsters, and the 2 degenerates pose in the ring. They raise each other's arms out. We get a big pyro show. It's a big feel-good moment because we will never see Triple H and The Undertaker square off again. It truly is the end of an era. Until the Brothers of Destruction decide to beat the crap out of DX. Which is a nice surprise, I guess. Yeah, they did a nice little fake out where the show looked like it was over. It was very clearly the end of the show, but then the Brothers of Destruction turn on DX. Undertaker tombstones Triple H. Shawn Michaels gets double teamed by the monsters and gets chokeslammed through the announce table. They're probably mad because Shawn no longer has hair, and I can't blame them. I just noticed that the long-haired guys beat the crap out of the bald guys. Hair always wins. And the Kane and Taker just kind of leave. And this didn't feel like a heel turn, one, because I don't think they're going to go anywhere with it, because neither guy is really full-time anymore, so they just can't. But also, Undertaker and Kane aren't exactly nice people. When they're faces, they more or less tolerate people and just kind of demand respect. So this is a bit of a stretch to call it a heel turn when you got a demon and a magical dead guy who murders people. So, and the crowd didn't really treat it like a heel turn. They seemed pretty all right with this. So yeah, that was a surprising little turn there. But I think that, I mean, I guess it kind of balances both guys out, because even though Triple H finally got his win on The Undertaker, he was still left laying, and Undertaker was the one that walked out of the show in one piece, relatively. So, yeah, that's about it for that match. It's not, like I said, it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. I'd be shocked if this continued in any substantial way going forward, but then again, WWE has surprised me before, so we'll see. I just hope that this doesn't get a rematch at WrestleMania. That's my only hope. So, all in all, that was the Super Showdown. Nothing really major to say. Like I said, it's just a big, fancy, bloated house show. Half the matches don't really mean anything. The biggest matches of consequences were like the title matches, and even then those weren't match. Honestly, the only real match of like real consequence was the number 1 contenders match, because that actually did set up a really big thing in the future. So I will say this was a lot better and much easier to get through than Saudi Arabia. A lot of that has to do with having a more receptive wrestling crowd, and also it just felt less bloated, and you didn't have a 50-man Royal Rumble that made you realize that, you know, there is such a thing as too much Royal Rumbles, kind of dragging it down. So this was a better show. I wouldn't say it's worth going out of your way to watch, but if you got nothing better to do, it's certainly not a bad way to spend 4 hours. But yeah, 1 pay-per-view down, 2 more to go. We've got Evolution next. They already started building that during the show by running through some of the card, and now we can focus on that as well as Crown Jewel. So hopefully the shows, particularly Monday Night Raw, are a bit better because they could be more focused going forward. But yeah, this show wasn't necessarily about making a ton of character or angle advancement. It was ultimately just like, hey, let's just give our Australian fans a really fun show to just enjoy a night of wrestling. So can't be mad at that. So, but thanks for listening, guys. That wraps up this quick Super Showdown review. I will be back with a review of Monday Night Raw very shortly. And if you want to tell me your thoughts on the Super Showdown, be sure to follow me on Twitter. I am at MarcusStewart7. That is the number 7. As always, be sure to like, share, and subscribe on YouTube, iTunes, and Podbean at Marcus Writes About Games. And you can also find me on other podcasts such as Carving Gaming Rushmores and my two Dungeon Dragon podcasts that I am a part of. They're not my shows, but I am a cast member. One is called We Wanted Adventurers, and the other is Dragon Guard, where it's two very hilarious and goofy campaigns that I'm a character on, and it's a really good time. If you're into role-playing, be cool if you check that out. So, until next time, guys, we're flying back from Australia, and we barely survived the trip, the crocodile. So, I've got Vegemite on one hand, I've got a big steak in the other, and we're flying back home, mate, to Monday Night Raw. I'll see you then.